She posted it at 2:03 a.m. A photo in bed with him, her face half tucked under his chin, laughing like she'd just been handed a better life. His hand rested on her hip like he owned it. They weren't even trying to hide. No filters, no captions pretending it was innocent. She didn't block me. She didn't think I'd see it. But I did. I was awake. Not because I couldn't sleep, but because I hadn't slept for 3 nights in a row. You don't sleep when your home starts feeling like a stage, and your wife keeps rewriting the script without telling you. So I watched the notification pop up, one of those autosave story previews that phones sometimes send when you're still logged in from some forgotten device. She must have forgotten that my old tablet was still linked. Her mistake. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stared at the screen, like the pixels were still forming, and maybe I was misunderstanding. But I wasn't. There were 2 wine glasses on the nightstand. Her red sweater bunched at the foot of the bed. And in the background, barely visible in the mirror, her phone, propped up like she wanted this moment frozen. She didn't post that for him. She posted that for her. For how it would feel to look back and remember betraying me and getting away with it. I sat on the edge of the bed for hours. Our bed. Same spot where she used to pull my arm around her in the dark. It felt radioactive now. I couldn't touch the sheets. I didn't even sit fully down, just balanced on the frame like I might fall through it. At 4:20 a.m., I started packing. Not out of rage. Not for some grand exit. Out of a numbness so deep it felt like instinct. I folded my clothes slower than I ever have. Like I was moving through water. I didn't take everything, only what I couldn't bear to leave behind. The wedding photo on my nightstand? Left it. The frame quote she got me when I got promoted? Took it out of the frame and shredded it. By sunrise, I had 6 bags in my car. 1 envelope in the closet. And 1 thought echoing in my skull. She thought I wouldn't find out. I didn't even lock the door behind me. Just pulled it shut and drove. No music. No GPS. Just drove until my hands stopped shaking. The next night, she came home and opened the closet, and everything was gone. I didn't stick around to watch her reaction. I didn't need to. Some moments are better when you don't see them. They echo louder that way. Instead, I sat alone in a cheap roadside motel 3 towns away, with a lamp that flickered every 20 seconds and a mattress that smelled like bleach and old tobacco. But at least it wasn't our house. I didn't want to breathe the same air she had contaminated. My phone buzzed for the first time at 9:56 p.m. Her name lit up the screen like a curse I'd been trying to forget. I didn't answer. Just stared at it while her face, the one I once loved without doubt, looked back at me from the contact photo taken 2 summers ago when she convinced me to climb that ridiculous hill just for the view. That same smile now felt like a trap. She called again. And again. By the 4th call, I turned off notifications. If she had wanted my attention, she should have thought about that before wrapping herself around a stranger and letting the internet see. I didn't block her. That would have given her too much power. No, I wanted her to feel the silence. Let her calls go through. Let them ring. Let her wonder exactly how much I knew and for how long I'd known. Because the not knowing? That's where real panic lives. And after what she did, I wanted her to drown in it. The next morning, I woke to 37 missed calls and 11 texts. The messages went from "Can we talk?" to "Where are you?" to "This isn't funny." And finally, the one that made my chest ache. "Please, just say something." I didn't. I had nothing left to say to her that wouldn't be drowned in everything she'd already broken. That afternoon, I drove back to the house. Not to see her. Just to confirm something. I parked across the street, engine off, and waited like a ghost outside my own life. After 20 minutes, she appeared. She stepped outside, her phone clutched in both hands like a lifeline, pacing on the porch in that frantic, uncertain way. She wasn't dressed like someone calm. Hair pulled back, eyes red from crying or not sleeping. I couldn't tell. She looked small, almost like the weight of what she'd done was finally starting to crush her. And still, I felt nothing. Maybe that was the worst part. The betrayal should have broken me. But instead, it hollowed me out. I wasn't angry. I was emptied. Later that night, I got a text from an unknown number. No words. Just a photo. It was him. The same guy from the bed photo. Shirtless again. Smiling like he'd won a trophy. Except this time, the background was familiar. Our house. My kitchen. He had taken a selfie standing next to my dog, who looked confused as hell, while she stood blurry in the background, pouring wine. I blinked at the image like it couldn't be real. She had brought him there. Into my home. Into the space we'd built together. And the audacity of sending me proof, whether it came from him, her, or some mutual friend trying to stir the pot. It was the final spark in a fuse I'd tried so hard to keep from lighting. I didn't respond. But now? Now I was done waiting in the shadows. If she wanted silence, she'd get it. But it would come with consequences. I must have stared at that photo for an hour before I moved. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because something inside me had already broken past repair, and I was waiting to see if anything still worked. He was in my kitchen. The cheap white cabinets we painted together. The uneven light fixture we laughed about replacing for months. He was standing where I used to make Sunday pancakes while she danced behind me in socks. Now, a stranger with a smug expression had taken my place. She had brought him in, not like a mistake, not like a moment of weakness, but like a replacement for everything I'd once meant to her. This wasn't just betrayal. This was desecration. She had taken everything sacred and lit a match to it, hoping I wouldn't notice the smoke. But I did. I wasn't ready to confront her, not yet. Words weren't enough. Not when she was playing a different game entirely. So instead, I started making quiet moves. I opened a new bank account at a small credit union across town. No online transfers. No shared statements. I drained half the joint savings, the legal limit without triggering alerts, and slid the rest to free status. I didn't touch the checking account. I wanted her to think she still had control, still had my trust. Then I called my old college roommate, Everett, who lived 2 hours north and worked in private logistics. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but when I explained what I needed, he didn't ask questions. "Whatever this is," he said, "you're scaring me with how calm you sound." "I'm done reacting," I said. "It's time she starts wondering." Over the next week, I became a ghost in my own marriage. She texted. I didn't reply. She called. I let it ring. She left voicemails that ranged from tearful to furious to begging. In one of them, she said, "Lowell, you don't understand. It wasn't what it looked like." That one made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because she posted the photo herself. She wanted it to look that way. The most surreal moment came on a Wednesday evening, 6 days after the photo. I was watching the house again from the safety of my car, parked behind a hedge across the street, hood low. She came outside, holding 2 trash bags, looking around like she expected me to step out of the bushes. Her paranoia was showing. That pleased me more than I care to admit. Then, a second man stepped outside behind her. Different guy. Younger. Longer hair. Not the same man from the photo. Another one. That moment, right there, it clarified everything. This wasn't an affair. This was a pattern. She didn't stumble into someone else's arms. She sprinted. With joy. With confidence. With enough recklessness to parade them through the front door. Our front door. I wrote a single sentence in my notebook that night. She gave away what I protected. So I took back what she expected. I had one more thing to do before the storm hit. I returned to the house in the middle of the day when I knew she wouldn't be there, thanks to the GPS tracker I quietly installed in her car weeks ago, when I still thought I was being paranoid. I walked in with gloves. No fingerprints. No lights turned on. And I took my time collecting the rest of what was mine. My father's watch. My tax records. The backup drive from the safe. The keys to the lake cabin she never visited. But most of all, I took the photo album. Not the wedding one. The older one. The one from before her. The one with my real life in it. The one that proved I had been someone before she reduced me to a prop in her little side story. And just before I left, I opened the closet again. And this time, I left something new. A small, black envelope taped to the mirror with gold ink that read, "Next time you open this door, be sure you recognize who's looking back." No name. No return address. Just silence. And one hell of a storm about to roll in. She finally stopped calling. That silence should have felt like peace, but it didn't. It felt like something was circling. Like when you're walking alone at night and every shadow seems to lean closer. That was the weight I carried now, a stillness too deliberate to be real. I knew her too well. Renee wasn't the kind of woman to walk away quietly, not even from the wreckage she created. If she wasn't trying to reach me anymore, it only meant one thing. She was shifting the strategy. I stayed gone. I didn't show up to my job the next week. I took a leave of absence under family medical crisis. I wasn't sure if it was a lie. My sanity had felt like it was on life support since the moment I saw her tangled up with that man in the photo. The line between heartbreak and illness had blurred. I wasn't eating much. Just coffee and crackers. I slept with one eye open in a rented studio above a closed print shop, listening to the distant hum of delivery trucks and pretending this was just a long, weird dream. Then came the letter. Not a text. Not an email. A physical letter tucked into the doorframe of the studio. No return address. No name. Just one page. Just one sentence. You left before I could explain. She was shifting tactics, switching from bold and cruel to meek and victimized. It was classic Renee. Paint herself as misunderstood just long enough to reset the balance. I knew the cycle well. She'd done it with friends, with jobs, with family. And now she was trying it with me. But she forgot something crucial this time. I had evidence. And not just the photo anymore. Because Everett, my old roommate, he had a friend who knew how to dig. And within 4 days, I had enough screenshots, messages, and timestamped footage to map out the whole ugly web. The hotel bookings. The secret Venmo payments under pizza emojis and flower icons. Even a parking ticket from the week she claimed to be at her aunt's house. Except the ticket was from a beach town 4 hours away, issued to a car parked overnight in front of a condo registered to a man named Marcus Klein. That name would have meant nothing to me, until I found out that Marcus had been in the same spin class as Renee. And when I searched his social media, I saw something that sent a chill up my spine. He had posted a video 6 months ago. It was a short clip, just 5 seconds. Him, turning the camera around, grinning. Behind him, a fire pit, 2 wine glasses, and a woman's laugh, familiar. Hers. Renee's. The date? 5 days after our anniversary. I played the clip over and over, pausing every time I heard her voice. My wife had been playing this game for longer than I'd ever imagined. She was so deep into the lie, she didn't even realize how messy the trail was. And that sloppiness gave me clarity, gave me purpose. So I returned to the house, not as a husband, but as a stranger collecting clues. She wasn't there, but something was. In the kitchen, stuck under a magnet, was a postcard. I didn't notice it at first, but the handwriting caught my eye. A loop in the R, a small heart dotting the I. It wasn't hers. It read, "Had a great time this weekend. Thanks for being so welcoming. Can't believe he didn't know. See you soon, Red Heart, M." I stared at that note like it was radioactive. Whoever M was, he felt comfortable enough to thank her for letting him enjoy what was mine. They were bold now, laughing behind my back like I was just some footnote in her dating history. She wanted me to feel like I was losing, but she underestimated what happens when a quiet man gets quiet on purpose. I pulled out my phone, not to text her, not to call, but to send one message to one number. A lawyer I hadn't spoken to in years, the one who handled my father's estate. It was time to file. Not for closure, not for revenge, but for freedom. Filing wasn't the hard part. It was signing. I stood in front of the lawyer's desk for a full 5 minutes, pen in hand, staring at the lines. They were clean, legal, final, just ink and consequence. He didn't say anything, just let me breathe through it, like he'd seen this kind of quiet breakdown before. And I did break. Not loudly, not dramatically, just in tiny pieces that no one could see. The kind that live in your bones and never quite glue back the same. When the paperwork was in motion, I left the office and drove without a destination. I ended up 2 counties over, parked outside a gas station at 3:40 p.m., eating dry pretzels from a bag I didn't remember buying. Everything felt dreamlike, unreal, except the storm building behind my ribs. That night, around 10:12, I got the message that changed everything. It wasn't from her. It was from a number I didn't recognize, Chicago area code. The text was short. "You think you know what she did. You don't." I didn't answer. I didn't need to feed a troll. But 2 minutes later, another message came in. This time, it was a photo. Not like the first. Not like the staged hotel shot that she probably posed for. This one was grainy, low light, surveillance style. Renee was sitting at a bar, leaning in toward a man in a baseball cap, her hand on his knee. Not a kiss. Not romantic. But something in her body language felt rehearsed. Too casual. Too confident. The caption under the photo. "That's not Marcus. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was hurt. Not because I missed her. But because something about that photo unsettled me in a way I couldn't explain. There was a pattern, and it was spiraling into something uglier than cheating. Something deliberate." The next day, I reached out to Everett again. Told him I needed every traceable social connection she had. Friends, coworkers, old gym buddies, even classmates from before we met. I wanted to know who had been in her orbit, and for how long. I was no longer looking for proof of infidelity. That was old news. I was now chasing motive. Intent. Because the truth wasn't just that she had replaced me. The truth was that she had been building a life without me for far longer than I'd suspected. Everett delivered, and what he found made my stomach twist. 3 men, 3 names, all different states, all within the last 2 years. And all of them had one thing in common. They had all filed for divorce within 6 months of meeting Renee, who, in each instance, had used a different name variation. Sometimes she was Ren, sometimes Lori. Once she even went by Elena, according to an old Airbnb guest review. And in each case, she left without explanation. No forwarding address. No closure. No legal trail. I felt sick. This wasn't an affair. This wasn't love lost or a marriage broken. This was manipulation. She was an expert at disappearing. I wasn't the first. And I probably wouldn't have been the last if I hadn't caught that accidental post she never meant me to see. I had to know what the game was. So I did something reckless. I turned my phone back on, reconnected to our shared account, and sent her a text. My first in weeks. Just 6 words. I'll come back. We need closure. She replied in less than 10 seconds. Can we talk tomorrow? Please. Alone. Of course she wanted to talk in private. Of course she thought this was her second chance to twist the story. But I wasn't going there to listen. I was going to watch her lie. Up close. And maybe, if I timed it right, I'd finally catch the slip she couldn't hide. The meeting was her idea, but I chose the place. Neutral ground. A public garden behind an old art museum downtown, the kind of place where the paths are just wide enough to keep your distance, and the silence between 2 people carries louder than their voices. I arrived early. Sat on a concrete bench under a rusted sculpture shaped like a split-open eye. I remember staring at it and thinking how fitting it was, how my own sight had been split wide open in the worst possible way. She arrived 17 minutes late. No apology. She walked up like it was any other Sunday. Her coat was buttoned high, a scarf thrown around her neck the way she used to when she wanted to look like she had it all together. I recognized the act instantly. This wasn't vulnerability. This was performance. Lowell, she said softly, almost like we hadn't torn each other to pieces over the last month. You look tired. That was the bait. She wanted to see if I'd soften. I didn't. You wanted to talk, I said. So talk. She sat across from me, legs crossed like she was posing for an interview. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she started. And I know what you saw looked bad. I wish I could take that back. I doubt you do, I said. You posted it. I didn't mean to. Her voice cracked, and she leaned in, like that detail made a difference. It was meant for my private story. I thought it would disappear in 24 hours. It won't disappear, I said calmly. Not from me. Not from anyone else who saw it. It's permanent now. She went quiet. Her eyes shifted. Not shame. Calculation. I made mistakes, she said finally. But I was lonely. You were always working. Always somewhere else. You brought another man into our home, I said. That's not loneliness. That's deliberate. Her mouth opened like she was ready to deny it, but then something flickered in her expression. Her defenses slipped just enough for me to see it. She wasn't here to confess. She was here to test whether I'd already figured it all out. Whether I knew just how deep the betrayal ran. So I pushed further. Marcus, I said. Chicago. The beach condo. That's where it started, right? Her breath caught. She blinked too quickly. Didn't expect that one? I asked. What about Dennis in Phoenix? Or Tom in Asheville? You've been at this longer than I realized. You hired someone to follow me? She asked, her voice suddenly sharper. The shift was instant, like a switch had flipped. I didn't need to, I said. You left trails. You always do. She stood up, suddenly cold. You're twisting things. You don't know what was going on with me. I was trying to find myself. You don't get to interrogate me like I'm a criminal. I stayed seated, calm, still, then stop acting like one. Her lips parted again, but she didn't speak. Instead, she just shook her head, as if I'd ruined some script she had planned in her mind. That's when I dropped it. I know about the others. All of them. The ones who divorced their wives. The ones who changed their numbers. The ones who disappeared after you vanished from their lives. This isn't about me. It never was. Her face collapsed, momentarily. Then, like a wave resetting itself, she straightened again. Smiled. Not an apology. Not regret. Just that slow, unsettling smile of someone who knows they've already crossed so many lines that another one doesn't matter. You never really knew me, she said softly, almost sweetly. You just wanted to believe I was the girl in your head. And you pretended to be her, I said. Until you didn't have to. She walked away after that. No shouting. No drama. Just a woman who had been unmasked and no longer cared who saw her. But I wasn't done. That smile she left me with, I'd seen it before, and I had proof. What she didn't know was that I had already contacted someone else. One of the men she had left behind. One of the ghosts in her trail. And he had agreed to meet me. Tomorrow. He was waiting in the back booth of a dusty coffee shop off Route 19, the kind of place where the lights buzz overhead and the servers all wear the same tired face. I spotted him immediately. Tall, rough-looking, his eyes sunken like someone who hadn't truly rested in years. He didn't wave when I approached, just nodded once and gestured toward the empty seat. "Thanks for meeting me," I said. "I wasn't sure I would," he replied. "But when you said her name, something in me said I had to." His name was Wes. He used to be a corporate engineer, clean-cut, successful, sharp-minded. That was before he met Renee, though she went by Elena when she entered his life. She worked at a nonprofit then, or at least pretended to. Said she loved animals, showed him pictures of dogs that turned out to be from stock websites. They met during a fundraiser, and within 3 months, he was planning a future with her. 6 months in, she was gone. Vanished. No note. No goodbye. Just one morning, he woke up and her side of the bed was cold. Clothes gone. Account empty. He'd already left his previous life behind for her, thinking he was starting a new chapter. Instead, he found himself bankrupt, emotionally and financially. "Did she ever tell you about a man named Marcus?" I asked. Wes's expression didn't change, but his hand curled slightly on the table. "She used to text someone under that name," he said. "Told me it was her cousin. I never met him." "He's not," I said. "He's one of us." Wes didn't flinch, just stared at me like he was trying to decide if I was real. "I thought I was crazy," he said quietly. "I thought maybe I'd imagined it all. But I couldn't get over the way it felt, like she had rehearsed every moment with me, like she was playing a role." "She was," I said, "and she's been doing it for a long time." He leaned back, eyes narrowing. "I don't think she's doing this alone." That stopped me. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said slowly, "someone was always one step ahead of me. The moment I started asking questions, things went wrong. My email was hacked. My bank flagged me for fraud. A job offer I had lined up suddenly disappeared. And when I hired someone to track her, they disappeared too. Literally. The guy dropped the case and moved out of state. I felt the blood drain from my face. Was this bigger than her? Was Renee just the mask, and something darker was behind the curtain? Wes pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his coat. It was a printout. A photo of Renee, not with any of us, not with Marcus, not with me, but with a man we hadn't seen before. Older, wearing a suit. The background looked like a courthouse. "She was with him a week after she left me," Wes said. "He's a lawyer." Guess what else? I waited. "He specializes in wills, life insurance, and asset liquidation." The word hung in the air like poison. Suddenly, every moment, every lie, every disappearance, every photo she accidentally let me see, made more sense. Renee wasn't just cheating. She was harvesting lives, reputation, money, access, influence. Each man was a resource, a stepping stone, a tool. And when they were empty, she left. But this time, she hadn't vanished. Because I'd interrupted the pattern. I had made noise. I had taken control. She couldn't stand that. "She's still in your life?" Wes asked. "Yes," I said, "but not for long." He nodded, then reached into his jacket and slid something across the table. "A flash drive. Everything I have. Photos, emails, timestamps. Maybe if enough of us compare notes, we'll understand what she's really after." I took it. My hands were shaking, but I didn't try to hide it. "She'll come after you," Wes said quietly. "Not like before. Not with charm. She'll use something new now." "I'm counting on it," I said, because the truth was, I already had the final piece in place. And when she showed her hand, I'd be ready. I didn't go home that night. I didn't even go back to the studio. I sat in my car until morning, parked by the river under a bridge, the sky bleeding orange over the surface of the water. For the first time in weeks, I felt still. Not at peace exactly. That would come later, but still enough to think without flinching. The pieces were all in place. I had the documents from the lawyer, the screenshots from Wes, the flash drive of cross-reference patterns that now included 3 more names added in the last 48 hours. All men who had stories just like ours. All of them discarded like old jackets. And at the center of it all, Renee, or Ren, or Elena, or whatever name she was using to build her next lie. And yet, I didn't feel anger anymore. She had taken so much time, trust, love, but she hadn't destroyed me. In fact, without meaning to, she had introduced me to a version of myself I didn't know existed. One that could adapt, investigate, plan, survive, and walk away. She texted me again that morning. Short, just, "Are we okay now?" I never replied. I didn't need to, because an hour later, her keycard access to our joint bank accounts failed. The utilities were officially out of her name. The locks had already been changed. The car she once drove, the one I'd bought and she'd claimed as hers, was repossessed by the dealership the moment the joint title was legally voided. Everything she thought she could circle back to had been quietly and legally dismantled. That was my goodbye. I left her nothing but her own reflection. The last thing I did before disappearing from that chapter of my life was send her one final envelope. No note inside this time, just a printed photo. Not of her in bed, not of me packing, not of the men she had ghosted. It was a picture of the old sculpture behind the museum, the one shaped like a cracked open eye. I highlighted a phrase I'd written on the back in small, tidy handwriting. Eventually, everything sees the light. I never heard from her again. And months later, after a road trip across the Pacific Northwest, 3 cities, and 2 long talks with Wes and the others, I finally found myself in a quiet place that felt like mine. A small town near a lake. Nobody knew me there. No one looked at me with pity. I got a job fixing up properties for a local realtor. Honest work with my hands, paint on my clothes, air that smelled like pine and old wood. And one morning, walking into a hardware store, I bumped into someone literally. She dropped her coffee. I picked it up. And for once, I didn't brace for lies. Her name was Marin. A teacher. Divorced. Honest in a way that didn't perform. She didn't ask what I'd been through. She just listened when I was ready to speak. And when I finally told her the truth, she didn't flinch or pity me. She said, "That's not your story anymore. That's just the chapter before the good part." She was right. Some betrayals break you. But others? They set you free.